We are Mike and Jeannie, and we restore old houses. In 2021, we moved to South Carolina and bought a 120-year-old Victorian house. Follow along as we put the polish back on this Victorian masterpiece.
Welcome back to 1834 Restoration House.
Well, how do you like those cicadas, huh? They are everywhere.
And loud.
And loud, yeah. The hotter it gets, the louder they get.
Yeah.
Well, I was under the house yesterday figuring out what to do to get ready for the air conditioning system install for the second floor. And I found out that we have some serious issues that need to be addressed.
There's several ants on this porch.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
We might need to move. Hold on a minute. We'll be right back.
Okay, that's better. We were sitting on top of a rotten spot there on the edge of the porch, and there's all kinds of bugs that are eating it and destroying it. And, you know, old houses, they will tear themselves apart if you're not careful. You have to keep after them.
At least these were little ants, though.
Yeah.
They're not going to bite me so much.
Right. But still, you know, just don't want them crawling all over your legs and everything like that. So, anyway.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, so as I was saying, I was under the house yesterday trying to figure out how we can run some of the utilities up to the top floor so we can get that HVAC system installed up there. And I found a few issues that are pretty serious.
Oh, dear.
And we are very concerned about these. We're going to have to address these. Well, the first one is the crawl space back there in the back of the house is wet. The soil. There's one area back there, one patch, that's wet. And it's been wet ever since we moved in here.
Oh.
And I at first attributed it to maybe just water coming in from the outside during storm runoff or whatever. But then I realized that it was doing it even when it hadn't rained in a while.
Oh.
There's a mystery structure that's underneath the kitchen area, and for those of you who've been watching a long time will remember that one. If not, you can go back to some of our early videos and pick up that. But this thing has a concrete pit, and that whole pit there is completely flooded with water right now. That's under our house. And water under a house is not a good thing.
No.
Okay. So historically, it's always been just maybe a little bit of water in the bottom, or maybe just kind of damp.
What'd you say? I couldn't hear you over that truck.
People here in the South like to take their mufflers off, apparently. So there's a lot of water in there. That's not good. Right. I don't know where it's coming from, but I have a couple of theories. Now, I was looking at some of the pipe work under there, and I realized that there's a pipe that goes across, drops into the ground, and disappears. And I'm starting to wonder if that pipe is cracked or leaking, because that section there where the pipe goes in is always wet.
Is it a water pipe or is it a gas pipe? Or?
No, it's a water pipe.
It's a water pipe,
yeah.
Okay.
And so it just drops into the soil and disappears, and that's at the back of the house. So I'm thinking that at one time they may have had a faucet back there somewhere for gardening, watering, or whatever, and I don't know, it just acts like it's leaking, because that area is always wet and nothing else is. So, circumstantial evidence makes me think that's the problem. So I need to dig into that and investigate that. The other problem is the chimney chase that I need to run utilities up to the top floor is being blocked by some very large HVAC ducting for the first floor.
Oh dear.
There's no way to get through that because whoever put them in just kind of laid them there, and they're big, they're squishy, and they're in the way.
Do they need to be that big?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Maybe. Now that brings up another issue. We believe that the ducting on the first floor that was installed some years back wasn't designed correctly, and we think that may be contributing to why the first floor system is not working efficiently. But we'll get into that later. Right now, the problem is that those ducts are in the way, and we're going to have to do something to get them out of the way so we can get through there.
Okay.
All right. We also found that we have a whole house water filter under there.
Oh.
And it is black.
Ew.
Absolutely black.
Well, good thing we clean the water before we use it.
Yeah, we filter all of our water here. We also, sometimes we boil it, sometimes we distill it. And so the water that we drink is safe generally. The rest is for showers, dishes, and washing clothes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we ordered a new one, and we're going to take that completely out and replace it with a brand new one, and hopefully that solves the problem.
Sounds good.
But I'm not kidding. It was black.
Gross.
The other thing that we have discovered is we don't think that our bottom floor air conditioning system has a filter anywhere.
Cannot find it.
I've looked
At
everywhere.
all.
I've looked all over the place. I cannot find a filter anywhere, which means that we're running unfiltered air back through our air conditioning system. And
That's bad.
that's bad. Yeah, that's bad because then the coils get dirty, they get clogged, they don't work efficiently, and ducts get full of dirt and all that kind of thing. So old houses will tell you what they need if you listen and pay attention to them.
I think ours is talking too much lately.
Yeah, she's talking to us loud and clear. I can go on and on about problems that we need to address, but these are the things we need to address right away. So we're going to see if we can dive into some of these and see what we can do in this episode. No promises that we can finish any,
No,
but
not likely.
it looks like we have enough material here to keep you guys occupied for a little while. See, there goes a little moped down the street. That was fun. All right, let's get going. I'm coming to you from under the house, and I can show you a couple of things that I talked about. So the first thing over there is you can see the HVAC duct has pretty much taken up all the space there, and there's no room to get through. So I'm going to be looking at ways that I can rebuild that, maybe with metal ducting tucked up against the rafters, the joist, and keep them out of the way. Now the other thing too is right there behind the water heater, that wood thing there is a mystery. We don't know what it is, but down inside there is a concrete pit, and buried just in front of that water heater there is what looks to be a boiler tank under the soil, which is rather concerning. And right above there, that's the kitchen. And then there's the water filter right there. You can see that is absolutely black. That's just disgusting. And so we'll be replacing that as soon as we get a new one. But that pipe, see that white pipe right there, that comes from somewhere in the darkness, but I traced it out, and that's a cold water pipe. So it comes over here, and then it goes down, it goes right into the soil. Now that is not the supply pipe for the house, because that comes in on the far end of the house, way back over down there somewhere. And that area right there where it's depressed is where everything is soaked. Up here is nice and dry, but down there is soaking wet. So the only thing that I can figure out is that pipe, or maybe even that other metal pipe in the background, has water pressure in it and it's just leaking. That's all I can figure. So I'm going to go back there and do some exploratory digging off camera, and I'll come back and let you know what I find. After digging around in the darkness and the dirt, I have more questions now than when I started. Like, what are those pipes? Where did they go? Why are they there? What's that mystery structure doing there, and why is there a tank buried underneath my kitchen? I think it had something to do with the water system. Maybe there was a well down there. Whatever it is, when they built this addition, they just covered everything up instead of taking it out. And now I believe it's causing us problems. I called the county, and they said they have records going clear back into the 1700s, if you can believe that. So next time we get over to the county offices, we're going to do a little bit of research and see what we can find out. Old houses have scary places, and you're probably curious about this one here. So it's a kind of a wooden structure that's built over the top of a brick foundation, and you can see the remains of a window hanging on a pipe there. I showed this in a video a couple of years back and haven't really revisited this place because frankly I don't like coming down here, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. But since you're curious, I'm going to take this camera and put it down inside there so you can see what's going on. All right, you see that?
That pit is probably about 8 feet deep, and right now it's full of water, and that is what looks like an old boiler tank, and that's buried under the soil out here, and I'm not sure what this is all about, but I'm not liking it, and I think this is probably going to be a big problem for us. This might have been really interesting back in the day, but I'll bet it was outside, and they, when they built the addition, decided to build it right on top. Okay, let me draw your attention to something. So here's a pipe laying on the ground, and I decided to see what that's all about. Well, it was broken right there. But that pipe disappears under the soil, and back over there in the corner are 2 more pipes that disappear under the soil. And I can tell you that the majority of the water that I'm seeing down in this corner is coming from here, because this section here is absolutely sopping wet. Now, it could be an old well or something, but this thing here seems to be some kind of maybe Victorian water system. I'm not sure what this is all about. And I just now spotted that faucet over there, so maybe that faucet is dripping. So let's go over there and have a look at that real quick, just to be sure that that's not the problem. Because if that's all it is, then we can solve that problem fairly easily. Let's see here, is that wet? Well, unfortunately, it's not wet, so that's not the problem. Whatever's going on is this right down here. Sorry about the spider webs in your face. But I don't know what these pipes are that just disappear in the soil. So I'm going to do some more exploration, and I'll be right back. I did some digging here, and this pipe, it goes through there, and then it looks like it turns a corner and then joins up with this other pipe here. See, when I shake it, that one moves too, and then it turns to the left and disappears again. So I don't know what's going on there, but it appears to be just a junction where it comes up and then continues over towards where that other pipe is. So I don't know what that thing is. It's still a mystery.
This is the outside of the area where I just was. So that mystery structure is back here in this corner just behind this foundation wall. And as you can see, this whole addition right here was built on top of it. And right here was probably the back wall of the house originally. And this was added on, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. But whatever that is, it's still under there, and it's still very wet. Now, there's a couple of things that could be contributing to this. This downspout right here does drop water, and the wet spot is on the other side of this wall. That could be a factor, but I've been under there at times when we had weeks since a rainstorm, and it was still wet under there. I don't know that this is 100% at fault. I'm still thinking there's something going on under there. Now, in order to do any of this kind of remedial work that's going to be required, I believe that we're going to have to probably take out this brick fill here, and possibly this brick fill right here, in order to get into that area, and first of all, get it dried out, and second of all, see if we can get out whatever that stuff is in there. But that is a project for another day. So what I want to work on right now is whatever I can do to get ready so that we can put air conditioning and heating on the top floor of this building. The one thing that's keeping me from getting that done is this unit right here. It has 2 very large ducts that goes through the brick wall. This one here on this side is a return duct, on the other side is a supply duct. But they're these big, huge flex ducts that are just laying there, and they're in the way. So what I would like to do is see if I can build a metal transition to get from this unit, get that air up off the floor and into a duct that's secured to the floor joists to give me some clearance where I can get through there. Because I've got this whole side of the house here I can't get to. I have to go all the way around the other side, clear up to the front, double back around, basically do an end run around all of the ducting just to get back over here. And that's not good. So I've got the technical data on this thing. Let's go into the house and take a closer look. There are two very large flex ducts that come out of there, and they're blocking all access into that back area there. That's what we need to fix. So what I'm thinking is I can get some rectangular duct and mount it up here to the floor joists, build a transition to the unit, and then make a straight run of about 5-6 feet or so, maybe longer, where I can actually have it lifted up off the ground and I can get underneath it. That's the goal. But as you can see, there are water pipes, electrical conduits, all kinds of stuff in the way. So I'm going to have to be very careful about how I approach this. I've spent a lot of hours trying to figure out how to lift the ductwork off the ground and get them attached to the joists. Well, it's not just a simple matter of tacking them up there because they're so big and they're so puffy. It's kind of like a big squishy thing. So here's what I've come up with. I want to take a sheet metal transition out of the furnace, and I want to come up to a rectangular duct that is mounted to the floor joists, and then I'm going to go across basically one section which is about 4 feet long. And then from there, I'll transition back to the flexible duct and just leave the rest of the system alone. My goal, and my only goal in this, is just to get that lifted up off the ground so that I can slide through there and get access to the area behind that. So let me show you what I came up with. If you look at the output of the furnace, it has an opening that is 16 by 16 inches. A rectangular duct is 24 inches by 10 inches. Well, that doesn't fit, and it has to come uphill out of the furnace to meet the duct that's hanging up from the joist. So it's this really complicated trapezoidal object. What I have to do is make a special transition, and so I'm going 24 inches here, and on the other end it's going to taper down to 16 inches here. So there's my first taper. That's my top and my bottom. Now on the sides, I have to go from 10 inches here to 16 inches here, which looks like this. A 10-inch taper to 16-inch taper. But because we're headed downhill, it has to have a downhill shift like that. Now this is really complicated, but it's actually really simple to figure out. In an upcoming episode, I'm going to walk you through this whole thing. We are going to try, emphasize the word try, to fabricate a sheet metal transition that'll connect up our furnace to a duct section. But that's a project for another day.
Welcome back to the Plaster Room. It's been quite a long time since we've been in here, but with all the rain again in the rainy season that we're in, we've decided we're going to start working in this room for a bit. Now, if you remember, originally this room had a lot of wallpaper all over it that was kind of falling down. So we took the wallpaper off, and there were huge cracks all over the walls. So we replastered all the walls. Took a few times. We learned a lot. Mastered the skill, which is great. And since then, we've been trying to take some of the paint off of the wood. The mantle here used to be painted. We took all of the paint off of that, and it looks a lot better. So we are going to continue taking the paint off of the wood, try to get the paint off of the ceiling, and make this room beautiful.
Most of the paint stripping that we do here at the old Victorian is done with the infrared stripper. This thing was actually designed for historic preservation use, and what it does is it puts out a spot of really intense infrared heat, and it causes the paint to get hot and bubble up. And what that does is it breaks the bond between the paint and the surface below. And while it's in that state, it's simply a matter of taking a metal scraper and scraping that paint right off. It's really fast and very effective. Now, it doesn't always work. So the woodwork in this house was originally treated with shellac, and then somebody came back later and painted over it, and that makes it super easy to get off. But there's a few places, like in this closet right here, for example, it was not shellacked, it was just natural. And so when they went ahead and painted that wood, there's no barrier of shellac to help break that bond. In this closet, we're going to have to use a chemical stripper to take that off, unfortunately, but it's the only way to get it done. Also, if I can draw your attention to the ceiling up here, I had started taking off the paint with the heat stripper, and I think it did a pretty good job for the most part, but getting down in those grooves was problematic. And so what I think I'm going to have to do is heat strip the majority off of the flat surfaces, and then go back with a chemical stripper and let the chemical stripper get down in those grooves and get that last little bit out of there. And also, while you're up there, take a look at the crown molding there, and you see blotches of paint all over there. And that's left over from the heat stripping, and that's just what happens. It does leave a little bit. But we have a process that we use to strip that off. This stretch of baseboard right here has been cleaned of all the residue. So what we do is we take a Scotch-Brite pad, some denatured alcohol, and we just scrub that. And that dissolves any remaining paint and takes it off and leaves us with a nice clean finish that's ready to have new shellac put on. Well, here's a view of the infrared stripper when it's operating. As you can see, it puts out a pretty healthy glow. And I can tell you that that's really hot. I'm about a foot away, and I would probably burn my hand just having it that close. That's called radiant heat. That's the same thing that makes us feel warm when the sun shines. It's the same thing that makes us feel warm in a house that has radiators. I'm going to go ahead, put this on here, and just start warming it up. I'm rotating it a little bit to kind of warm up the area surrounding it. See, now the paint is starting to bubble right there where I've got it. Now I can take this tool and scrape it off. See that? See how easy that came off? Now, every time I've shown this in the past few years, there's always somebody who says, well, that's going to take forever. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yes, it does take forever. But it's a whole lot faster than trying to sand it. It's a whole lot faster than trying to scrape it by hand. This really does speed things up. But the thing about historic preservation is you can't be in a hurry. You got to take the time to do a good job. Okay, I wanted to show you in real time how long it took to do that little section. So yes, it does take a little while, but it gives you a really nice result. Now, one of the things that is important when using one of these is you can scorch the wood if you're not careful. So you really have to watch out what you're doing and make sure you don't keep the heat on there too long. Pull it out, put it back in, pull it out. Just kind of control how much heat you're putting into that woodwork. For those of you who are longtime viewers of the channel, this is probably a review for you guys, but we've had a lot of new people join up in the last couple of years who haven't seen this yet, so just kind of bear with me for a second, if you will. This thing comes with a few different tools, and as you can see, they have all kinds of different shapes, and these are really great for getting down into the different shapes of the wood. So we've got rounds, half rounds, flats, points, all kinds of stuff. We even have super sharp points here. So let me see if I can show you how we can use that to our advantage. So I'm going to take this little round right here and get it all warmed up first. If you have an old house that has a lot of paint that needs to be removed, this is a great way to do it. I don't know if you saw that, but this is pine wood and it has pitch in it, probably 120, 130 old pitch, and it'll still bubble. So be careful. You probably noticed I have this thing pointed at the wall. The wall is covered with plaster, and there's really no fire danger there. I can put my hand on it, and the wall is warm but not hot. You don't want to do that with sheetrock though, because sheetrock has paper and you can set it on fire. So just be aware of where you're pointing your tool and be safe. So I'm just going to gently work this. I'm not scraping very hard, but I'm keeping a little bit of heat in there, not too much. And then just gently scraping. And I'm always ready to pull this thing out at a moment's notice if it starts getting too hot. Okay, now I've gotten to the point where I need something that has a little bit more point to it. So I'm going to choose not this one, but this one here, because it has a kind of a rounded point right there. So I can get that up inside there and get that corner cleaned out a little better. Now I can use the reverse curve there to get the other side. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a public service announcement. That is, if you have a historic house and you're tempted to paint the woodwork, stop and think before you do that, because you can see it's difficult to get off. It's not impossible, but it takes a whole lot of work, and it's much easier just to maintain the natural wood finish than it is to try to strip the paint back off. So, just saying. One interesting thing about doing this is that the thicker the paint film, the easier it is to take it off. Now, right down here, this is where the paint kind of tends to collect, right here in this gap. So, got a nice thick paint film right there. So, see how it just comes right out as one big glob. One thing that's indispensable for historic preservation is a gallon jug of denatured alcohol. Now you can get these at paint stores like Sherwin-Williams or other, semi-commercial type outfits, and it's much cheaper than going to the big box stores where you only get the little ones. Buy it in bulk is what I'm saying. But this stuff is so handy for a lot of things. It's great for cleaning woodwork, it's great for cleaning glass, it acts as the solvent for shellac, which is also indispensable. So I'm going to show you really quickly how I clean this up. So this area here I just worked over. It's still warm from being heated up, but it's really rough. It has little bits of paint left on there that didn't come up. And so what I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to put just a little bit of denatured alcohol on there. What I like to do normally is get a small bowl and just put it in there, because I don't want to put any contaminants back down inside there. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to come over here and just kind of rub this down. Scotch-Brite pad, denatured alcohol, and just rub it. You don't have to worry about harming the patina of the wood, because this stuff is not aggressive enough to do that, unless you really get on it. But for most things, you just apply some light pressure and give it a good scrub. Now, while it's still wet, go back and wipe off the alcohol. Do that a couple of times, and any finish that's on there, any old shellac or anything, will just come right off. And you might have to double it up and get down into the groove here a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but your efforts will be rewarded. I do need to mention, though, this will dissolve shellac. So if you have shellacked floors, you might want to put down some kind of a drop cloth, and don't let it get on anything that has shellac, because it will dissolve it. All right, I just wanted to show you real quick the difference between the side that I have cleaned and the side that I haven't cleaned. See the difference there? It takes all that hazy residue off of there and leaves you with a nice, clean wood finish. But it doesn't harm the patina. In fact, it leaves you with a nice patina, which is really neat. Now let's watch this dry for a second and see how it turns out. This side here is dry now. It's nice and smooth and ready for refinishing. This side over here is still rough and kind of sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too. Now what I'm doing is I put some in a tray here, and I just want to get some on the pad, wring it out. You don't want a bunch of excess. And then just start scrubbing. denatured alcohol is not going to hurt your hands, but it will leave them very dry. So I always like to wear a glove just for that reason. So do that, wipe it down, hit it again, keep the pad wet, but not soaking wet. It really just takes a couple of rounds like that, and now it's done. And it's already dry. I'll tell you what, this old wood has so much character. All right, I'd like to draw your attention to something here. So I heat it, I scrape it, and then I went over there with the shellac and tried to clean it up. But there's still a couple of persistent white specks here. That's paint. Now what I can do is come along after I've cleaned it with this, and those little paint specks, they'll just pop right off. No problem whatsoever. You might have to come back and do this a couple of times until you're really satisfied with the look of it. Just pop those off. Okay, now I can come back here and put a little more denatured alcohol in there, scrub it again. And every time I do that, it cleans it up just a little bit more. All right, here's a baseboard that we cleaned some time ago, but we never really did come back with the alcohol and the pad and super clean it. So I'm doing that right now. Let's see if we can't get this thing ready. It does have a couple of little white dots of paint, and we'll just get those with the scraper. Right now, I just want to super clean it with denatured alcohol and a Scotch-Brite pad. When I'm done with this, the wood should feel smooth, not sticky. If it feels sticky, that means there's some shellac left on there. And I'm going to go ahead and just scrub that off again. And then wipe it down. All right, we're so glad you stopped by today, and I really hope that you enjoyed that demonstration of paint stripping. And we will get back to that and do some more of that, but we won't bore you with it. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. But we have a lot of stuff going on here, and we're just trying to get some things done and do as much as we possibly can with the time that we have and the resources that we have. But that's it for this week. We are out of time once again, and now it's time to close.
Sounds good. Thank you for watching 1834 Restoration House.